Who made this apple pie? Jedediah Cole set down his fork so hard the good china rattled, and every head at the long table turned toward the kitchen door like they'd been caught stealing. Asterisk. Nobody answered him right away. That was the strange part. 20 people crowded into his dining room for the harvest supper, and not one of them would meet his eye. Asterisk. I asked a simple question. He said again, quieter this time. The way a man does when he already suspects the answer will cost him something. Asterisk. His sister Delphine finally cleared her throat. It's Mercy's pie, Jed. She bakes for the kitchen most every day. Asterisk Mercy, he repeated, like he was trying to place the name to a face and coming up empty. And that alone told him something ugly about the last 3 years of his own house. Asterisk. He pushed back his chair and walked toward the kitchen before anyone could stop him. And what he found there was a woman on her knees, scrubbing the hearthstones black with soot. Her sleeves rolled to the elbow, her hair coming loose from its pins in damp little curls stuck to her neck. She didn't hear him come in. She was humming something low and tired, a hymn maybe. The kind you hum not because you feel holy, but because the sound keeps your hands moving. Asterisk, you made the pie, he said. Asterisk, she startled so hard she near dropped the brush. When she looked up at him, her face went the color of ash, and she pushed herself to standing so fast her knees cracked audible. Asterisk, yes sir. I hope it weren't too tart. I only had the last of the greenings. They were bruised some, but I figured bruised apples still make a fine pie if you cut around the soft parts. Asterisk, it wasn't too tart, he said. It was the finest thing I've eaten in this house since my mother died. Asterisk, she didn't know what to do with that. She wiped her hands on her apron twice, though they were already dry, and looked at the floor like the floor might tell her the right thing to say. Her name was Mercy Talbot, and she had been in that kitchen 11 months. And in all that time, not a single guest at Jedediah Cole's table had asked her name, let alone thanked her for a meal. She was the kind of woman folks looked past on purpose, not out of cruelty exactly, but because looking at her too long meant remembering that somewhere behind her plain, gray dress and her chapped hands was a person who used to have a husband and a house and a name people said with respect. Before the fever took Thomas and left her with nothing but his debts and a baby, who didn't live past its first winter. Asterisk, she'd come to Cole Ranch because the foreman's wife, God rest her kindness, had heard Mercy was widowed and starving in town and told her there was work in the kitchen if she didn't mind hard hours and no thanks. Mercy hadn't minded. She'd have scrubbed floors with her own hair for a roof and 2 meals a day by then. Shame does that to a person. It makes you grateful for scraps and ashamed to want more than scraps, both at the same time. So you stop wanting out loud. Asterisk. Jedediah Cole was a different kind of wounded, though nobody would have guessed it looking at him, tall and broad-shouldered in his good wool coat, the richest cattleman in 3 counties. Land stretching farther than a man could ride in a day. But rich men grieve too, and Jed had buried a wife 4 years back, name of Eleanor, dead of childbed fever along with the son she was trying to give him. And after that, he'd gone hard and quiet, the way some men do, burying himself in cattle prices and fence lines because numbers don't ask. You how you're feeling, and land doesn't remind you of anybody. Asterisk. He'd let his sister run the house because he couldn't bear to look at it too close. That was how a woman could work under his own roof for near a year and he wouldn't know her name. He wasn't cruel. He was just gone somewhere inside himself. And grief like that makes a man blind to smaller sufferings happening right under his nose. Asterisk, sit down. He told her that night in the kitchen. You're not eating standing up in your own kitchen while I eat pie at my own table? Asterisk, oh. Sir, I couldn't. Asterisk, you made it. Sit. Asterisk, she sat. stiff as a fence post at the little table by the window where the kitchen girls took their meals. And he sat across from her uninvited. And Delphine came looking for him 20 minutes later to find her brother eating cold beans out of a pot with a woman who flinched every time he spoke to her too kind. Asterisk, word got around the ranch quick, the way it does. Some of the hands thought it was funny, the boss taking a shine to the kitchen widow. Some of the house girls thought it was scandalous. And one man in particular, a foreman named Otis Greyhood, had his own eye on inheriting more than wages from Jed someday. Didn't think it was funny at all. Asterisk, you want to be careful. Otis told Jed out by the corral a few days later, letting a woman like that get comfortable. Widows in her situation, they know how to make themselves needed. Then one day you look up and she's running your whole house and nobody remembers how she got there. Asterisk, she's running the kitchen, Jed said. That's all. Asterisk for now. Asterisk Jed didn't answer that, but it sat in him crooked. The way an unkind word does, even when you know the man saying, it has his own reasons for saying it. Asterisk, he started coming to the kitchen more. Told himself it was to check the accounts or ask about supplies, but really, he just wanted to hear her talk. She had a way of describing things that made the plainest chore sound like it mattered. She'd tell him about the bread not rising right because the morning had turned cold and the yeast needed coaxing like a shy child. And he'd find himself thinking about that description 3 hours later out on the range, smiling at nothing. Asterisk, why do you stay in that kitchen every night past dark? He asked her once. The other girls go home to their families. Asterisk, she was quiet a long moment. Kneading dough she didn't strictly need to knead anymore. I don't have anybody to go home to, Mr. Cole. My husband's 3 years gone. My little girl didn't live to see her first spring. This kitchen's the only place anybody expects me anywhere, so I stay in it long as I can. Asterisk, he didn't say anything to that. There wasn't anything to say that wouldn't sound cheap next to a grief that size. So he just sat with her while she finished the dough, and that silence, unlike most silences between them, didn't feel empty. Asterisk. I lost my wife, he said finally, and our boy never drew a breath. For years this March, asterisk, I'm sorry, she said, and she meant it plain and simple. No performance in it, which was rarer than he expected from people who said those words to a rich man. Asterisk, everybody's sorry, he said. Nobody says her name anymore. Eleanor, it's like she's supposed to just be a shape in the past I don't discuss at dinner. Asterisk, I say Thomas's name, Mercy said. Every night, even if there's nobody to hear it but the pots. Asterisk, something in him cracked open a little at that. Hearing another person confess to talking to the dead in an empty kitchen, same as he did in an empty study some nights with a bottle he didn't need. Asterisk, Delphine noticed the change in her brother before he noticed it himself. Noticed him shaving more carefully. Noticed him lingering at the kitchen door with some flimsy excuse about grain deliveries. She didn't disapprove exactly, but she worried the way sisters worry. That grief had made him foolish, and that Mercy, Talbot, kind as she seemed, was still a woman with nothing, and nothing has a way of looking for something to attach itself to. Asterisk, you be careful with her feelings. Jed, Delphine told him. She's had enough taken from her already. Asterisk, I know it, he said, and he meant to be careful. He truly did. Asterisk, but careful men don't always stay careful, and one evening in October, with the wind carrying the first cold breath of coming winter through the kitchen window, he found himself standing closer to her than he'd meant to while she wrapped a cut on her thumb. And he took the cloth from her hands and finished wrapping it himself, slow. Like the task deserved more time than it did. Mr. Cole, Jed, he said. You've called me Mr. Cole 11 months. I'd like to hear my name in your mouth once before I die of old age waiting. Asterisk, she laughed. Actual laughter surprised out of her like a bird startled off a fence rail. And it was the first time he'd heard that sound from her. And he decided right then he wanted to hear it every day for the rest of his life. However many days that turned out to be, asterisk, Jed. She said, testing it, asterisk there, he said. Wasn't so hard. Asterisk, that was the turning point, though neither of them called it that at the time. It was small, the way real turning points usually are, not lightning. Just a woman saying a man's name out loud in a kitchen, smelling of yeast and wood smoke, and something between them settling into a shape that couldn't be unsettled again. Asterisk, but happiness like that draws attention from people who resent it. And Otis Gray had been watching close, and Otis had debts of his own nobody knew about. Gambling debts run up in town that he intended to solve by making himself indispensable to Jed Cole's operation. Maybe even angling toward a partnership if he played his cards patient. A kitchen widow catching the boss's eye threatened that plan considerable. Asterisk. So Otis went to Delphine first, seating doubt soft and careful. Said he'd heard talk in town that Mercy Talbot's husband hadn't died of fever at all, that there'd been debts, gambling debts. And some folks whispered Thomas Talbot took his own life rather than face them. And that Mercy had known it and let everyone believe fever so she wouldn't be shamed twice over. Whether it was true or a lie built from scraps of old gossip, Otis didn't much care. He only needed it to travel, and travel it did. Delphine. Worried for her brother, worried for the family name. Brought it to Jed straight, thinking she was protecting him. If it's true, she said, and she's kept it from you, ask her yourself. Jed said, sharper than he meant to. Don't bring me secondhand shame about a woman who's done nothing to either of us but bake bread and bury her own dead quiet. But it lodged in him anyway. The way ugly rumors do, even when you refuse them out loud. And that night, he found himself asking her straight, clumsy with it, hating himself even as the words left him. Is it true your husband took his own life? Her face went white, then still, in a way that frightened him more than tears would have. Who told you that? Doesn't matter who told me. Is it true? It matters plenty who told you. Because whoever it was wanted you looking at me different than you did yesterday. Her voice was shaking now. Not with weakness, but with something closer to fury held on a short leash. Yes, he hung himself in our barn owing money to men in town who would have come for worse than money if he hadn't. Or I told everybody. Fever because I couldn't bear my daughter. Growing up knowing her father chose leaving over staying. If she'd lived long enough to ask. I've carried that lie 11 months alone. Jed and I would have carried it 11 more. And I'm sorry, it wasn't good enough truth for you. But it was the only truth I had strength left to tell. She was crying now, angry crying, the kind that comes out sideways. You want to send me off the ranch for it? You go ahead. I've been sent off worse places for less. I don't want to send you anywhere, he said, and his own voice broke some saying it. I ask wrong. I asked like I already believed the worst of you, and that was cruel, and I'm sorry for it. Sorry doesn't unsay it. No, he agreed. It doesn't. But I'm asking you to let me try anyhow. Because the alternative is I lose the only kitchen in this state that makes bread worth crossing a room for. And worse than that, I lose you. And I've already lost enough people in my life to know I don't want to lose one more over gossip. I should have had better sense than to repeat to her face. She didn't answer him that night. She went home to her little room above the smokehouse and didn't come to the kitchen the next morning. And the one after that, and Jed understood, with a sick, lurching feeling, that he might have broken something that wasn't going to mend just because he was sorry. He went looking for her on the third day and found her packing the one trunk she owned. Going where? He asked. Standing in her doorway like a man who'd lost the right to stand anywhere near her. Town first. Then wherever there's kitchen work and nobody's heard the name Talbot, don't. Give me a reason not to that isn't pity, Jed Cole. Because I have had a bellyful of being pitied in this life, and I would rather be poor and unknown than poor and pitied one more winter. He crossed the little room in 2 strides and took her hands. Trunk lids still open between them. Her few dresses folded inside like a life packed small enough to carry alone. It's not pity, he said. I have not thought about anything but you since the night you said my name in that kitchen. And I have been a fool and a coward about saying it plain. So here it is, plain. I love you. Not your pie, though God knows the pie helped. You, the way you talk to bread like it's got feelings. The way you say your husband's name to the pots because there's nobody else to hear it. The way you looked at me like I was still a person worth talking to back when the rest of this ranch had stopped, seeing me as anything but a bank account with a face on it. I love you, and if you leave, I am going to spend the rest of my life eating cold beans out of a pot alone and telling myself I deserve it. And I would rather not. If it's all the same to you, she was crying again, but different now. The kind that comes when something finally gets said instead of swallowed. You don't know what you're asking for. A widow with a dead husband's shame following her, no family. No name worth having. I'm asking for a woman who stayed in a kitchen past dark because it was the one place anybody expected her, he said. I'd like to be the reason somebody expects you somewhere warmer than that from now on. Otis Gray didn't take kindly to the outcome. When word got back to him that Jed had ridden into town 2 Sundays later with Mercy Talbot on his arm, announcing to the whole congregation that they intended to marry before Christmas, Otis made one last attempt. Cornering Jed after service to remind him what kind of talk a coal marrying a kitchen widow would stir up among the cattle buyers he did business with. Let them talk, Jed said. A man who spends 4 years dead inside his own house on account of grief, and then finds one reason to feel alive again. Doesn't much care what the cattle buyers think of his wife's apron. He fired Otis the following week. Not for the gossip alone, but for the gambling debts that surfaced once he started asking around. Debts that explained plenty about why a foreman would want his boss too. Distracted or too ashamed to look close at the ranch's books, they married in December, small and plain the way Mercy wanted it. In the front room with a fire going and Delphine crying happier tears than she'd cried in years. And Mercy wore a blue dress that had been Eleanor's once, altered with Delphine's blessing. Because some things deserve to be passed forward instead of buried with the past at the wedding supper, laid out on the same long table where nobody had known her name 11 months before. Every single person there knew to thank Mercy for the meal before they thanked God for it. And she stood at the head of that table, not scrubbing hearthstones, but sitting beside her husband. And when somebody asked who'd made the pie, she didn't look at the floor this time. She looked up right at Jed and answered plain and proud. Did. Same as always. Only difference now is somebody finally thought to ask my name along with it. And Jed Cole, rich as he was in land and cattle and every worldly thing a man could count, reached over and took her hand under the table like a boy who couldn't believe his own good fortune, and thought that whatever he'd paid for that ranch, this particular harvest had cost him nothing and given him everything. And no bank in the territory could put a number on that kind of return.